river, wash my soul from man's deceit. Trade all these visions for something I can believe. Everyone's face sells so.
Establishing shots. All right, purpose of establishing shot is to show where the characters are at. So, in the case of a comic book or a TV show, you do a picture of a restaurant, and then everything else on the inside is probably shot in a studio, a movie studio, nowhere near that restaurant. All right. In fact, that restaurant I would guarantee is in New York because I've seen it. I'm pretty sure they filmed the TV show in California. But that one picture that they open with, just like a comic book page, allows you to not have to draw any more of that building than you want to put in. Sometimes your establishing shot is someplace crazy that doesn't really exist in the real world. They used to do establishing shots for Star Wars on sheets of glass, and then they would go from that beautiful, super realistic painting into scenes where people are running through hallways. And we all bought into it. They didn't have to actually build the Cloud City, they just had to show a picture of it. Then they had to build the hallways of the Cloud City. So that's how it works. Your establishing shot for your comic is going to be depending upon what your comic is about. If it's scary, you might have a scary house. All right. Both of those are from, well, this is from American Horror Story and a bunch of other movies because that's a fairly famous house. I forget which creepy movie this is. Oh, I knew it. But anyway, you get the idea. As I click down here, we got the Bates Motel where Psycho was filmed. If your story starts with something creepy, all right, you establish that place. If your story starts in the middle of the jungle and a cub is supposed to be born to be king someday, you do landscape. So your establishing shot could be a lot like any of the stuff we did in point perspective or even the landscape drawing. It's up to you to decide what that place needs to be. All right. Is it a spaceship? Is your story going to take place in outer space? If you can make this drawing important to the story you hope to tell later, when we go to assemble it as a comic book, all you got to do is put this drawing behind a good sheet of paper, trace it out. You're already got done with your composition. I mean, you have everything drawn that you will need to make that comic book later. All right. In this case, establishing shot is a gymnasium. All right. So he does this one where he puts a bunch of effort into it. All right. He draws the heads up close, more detailed than these little silhouettes far away. And then he can do close ups, people doing a lottery. Only the essential things to tell what that action is in there: the announcer, the ball, the machine, a little bit of the table. All right. They don't have to draw the entire gymnasium to show that this is a crowd scene either. They can draw the people up front with some detail. Then you draw people turning away so you don't have to do a face. You can draw bodies with almost no detail. All right. That's what the establishing shot allows you to do. We already know it's in a gymnasium. All right. Teen Titans Tower. Titans Tower. Not the good Titans Tower from the original Teen Titans, but you know where you're at. This guy's on a rooftop. From this scene, the next panel could be anything. We just got done doing our sequential paneling. So think in your head, what would be your next panel for this? Would it be a close-up on this window? Is he staring at that? Is he surveilling bad guys? Is it going to be him preparing a weapon or a gun or him writing a love letter? It's going to be a close-up. It's really where your story decides to go. Certain establishing shots are just more fun to draw than others. There is the Batcave. Everything that's possibly cool is cool about the Batcave. And we'll take a look at some pages and see how establishing shot. Now, this one, we start with Spider-Man meeting the Black Cat on a roof. We know they're on a roof because we see this. He drops down. You see one of the doors that lead to the roof. So he didn't have to draw the whole roof. Then we see a close-up. It's big enough that it's actually cropping out part of her face. They pan back. All right. We see more detail there, almost as much as we see in the establishing shot. Then we got another close-up. Then we have another detail shot. All right. So in this first row, there is some more background that establishes where they're at than we're normally, or that we would normally have to do. He chose to do it this way from these close-ups, these back shots. Personally, I think he just liked drawing the Black Cat's full body. That could be a lot of it. Remember, comic books are predominantly read by dudes, so there is that. But if you look at the rest of the page, we got how many close-ups? 1, 2, subtractive shot, so that counts. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-ish. No. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right. So we've got 15 shots that are just faces and not even whole faces, partial faces. So that's what the establishing shot allows you to do. See the same thing here with this roof, but we start getting into the close-ups, less detail needs to be there. The school establishes where this scene's taking place. Then there's a far shot, then close-up, 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 close-up. Most comic books are about telling a story. And that's exactly, everybody thinks they're about fighting, but you get to that fighting scene and then that becomes the exciting part of the book. But really, most of the book isn't about fighting. Most of the book is setting up the moment for the fight or giving the reasons for the fight. And a lot of it's about two people talking. So you got to be able to show different places in the background. You got to be able to show those people. Now, your establishing shot is going to be pertain to your story in particular. Maybe it's outdoors, and it's a landscape. Maybe it shows a fantastic city of the future. Maybe it shows a hardware store, or maybe it's a spaceship. You know, you're going to do one establishing shot for today. Hopefully, your 2 sequential panels are finished, and you can send those to me. And that's about where we're at. All right. Any questions from anybody on that? All right, good. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn on some tunes. I'm going to let you guys work through the rest of class. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right. Get busy, people. All right. So for those people who I know I explained this a little better earlier about what you should do for your establishing shot. Establishing shot could be square, it could be rectangle, heck, it could make a circle if you really wanted to. I usually like to go with rectangles. So I'm going to use my straight edge, just kind of like how we did when we were doing the landscape. And just give myself an area, right, to work in. Now, it doesn't have to be a full sheet of paper. I am used maybe about a third or a fourth of that page. But I did give myself some length. Now, if I was going to do like New York City, then I might have thrown in some vanishing points. I might do it as a 2-point. But if I do a place that doesn't really exist and is roughly organic, I can start doing strange shaped buildings, right? So maybe these buildings flow. They're round, they're organic, they look like they grew out of the ground. You know, they could have balconies. They could be made out of stone. Do one real close. I'm kind of going with an egg flavor to this entire city, uh, just because it's weird. Maybe it's a city of people evolved from chickens. Using my space rules, things that are closer are going to be bigger, things that are farther away are going to be smaller. Boom, boom. Now, I was kind of joking about the inhabitation of chickens. It's just me playing around. I'm sketching it out. I might throw in a light horizon line to remind me where I eventually want to end up with this. Maybe I'm going to divide it with some kind of pathway, or maybe there's a river that runs through my establishing shot. Maybe there's some kind of funky bridge. Now, yours doesn't have to be a big landscape like this. Like I said, your establishing shot might be the outside of a car. Maybe you're going to have two people talking to each other in a car. If you can figure out what it is that you would want eventually for your comic book page, because that's kind of where we're heading at some point, um, that would be awesome. Because once you draw it, it's either easier to redraw it, or you could actually trace it onto your comic book page and go from there. All right, so I'm gonna make some more little egg buildings over here. I really should have consulted a book on hair braids because I was trying to make stone that looked like it was braided, and some of my braiding stone does not look really like it looks like a mistake. I'll be honest. But then again, this is essentially just doing free form stuff, trying to come up with an idea of what this city looks like. So forth and so on. And I would just carry it on from there, make sure my mountains are where my mountains be, shaded eventually, establish a light source. All right, so the side of the egg would be darker. All right. So you kind of get the idea. Brady. All right, so I still got a long ways to go on that. Am I happy with it? It's kind of a sketch. Um, but what I wanted to show you in doing this, I'm applying a lot of the stuff that we've learned already, right? And we learned how to do landscapes, so I put some mountains in the background. We learned how to make things look closer. We learned how to make things go farther away. So I got that going on. Um, Shading, this here, this section right here, is showing the shadow. I got my arrow up here in the upper right showing me which way the light is coming. So I'm trying to take and add the stuff that we have learned all along, or have learned all along, have learned since last semester, and applying it to this drawing. And like I said, to me at this moment, this is more of a sketch. Um, I went in with a really loose idea for this village, the Ektar village, and maybe showing it a little more advanced what it might look like in the future when it's more of a city instead of a place where, city instead of a village, to be honest. So just playing with the whole concept of using woven stonework and eggs, because eggs are a big thing in the Ektar village. It's a long story, but essentially they give birth to an egg, and over 2 months that egg grows, and this really tough little monster baby warrior comes out of this egg. So egg is an important symbol within their village. So I was trying to show a lot of that. Um, and that's about basically it. All right. So let me stop that.